or two. We'll give folks another few seconds to filter in.
Where'd Tina go? Okay, you are. How many do I have? 54?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Seeing that we have a quorum, we have the official go-ahead to get started. So once again, good morning, welcome. Thank you all for joining us here. I'm Kirk Cannon, moderator. And I hope, as everyone have an agenda? Did everyone get a chance? There's a pile by the table by the door there, and there's a pile on the piano. But even with this nice agenda, everything laid out and everything we're planning to do, I'm almost thinking that we may be, based on what we all heard a little bit earlier this morning, kind of have a mandate to just set this aside and maybe just talk about slides and playgrounds and jungle gyms and confetti. So I'm thinking confetti cannons in the balcony in the back there. So if you all are okay with having to clean confetti out of your hair every Sunday morning, then I think we should definitely look into that. So, but as I think it was Steve Allen used to say, all seriousness aside, we can go ahead and get started. So thank you again for joining us here at the 2024 semi-annual meeting. So the main purpose of this meeting is actually to present the budget for next year, for 2025. But the bylaws do also give consideration for, quote, such other matters as may come before this meeting, unquote. So our agenda, as you can all see, includes a few other things that hopefully will be more fun than talking about finances and budgetary concerns. And first, the very first one that we're going to kick off is our mission moment for this meeting, which will be kicked off by Stephen. And then thereafter, as you can see, we'll have a pledge drive update. The draft Rhonda will present the summary of the draft budget and such other financial matters as she's going to discuss. Justin's going to give us an update on the capital campaign, and then I'll have a few words to say about some bylaws revisions that we're working on. Now, for those of us who are joining us on YouTube, we're very glad that you're with us, but unfortunately, for some reason, for the last few Sundays, Chad and I have not been able to see the chat on our YouTube event. So those of you joining us remotely, if you do have questions, I'm asking that you please email Liz in the office, just the normal office email address. And Liz is going to be monitoring her phone, and she will present me with those questions toward the end of this meeting, if any of the folks online do have questions. So I think, without any further ado, let's begin with what I think we can all agree is a really, really wonderful and enriching part of everything we do here every Sunday, and that's our fabulous music program led by Lynn and Stephen. And I purposely did that based on what we've heard in council here lately, so.
And it is nice to come up because I feel like we do have a vital part of the church that, and a lot of people give me credit, but I think what I turned out to be pretty good at is helping volunteers feel good about sharing. Because what is really strong about the music here in this church is the volunteers. The one that jumps out at me is Kelly. He leads and writes, and provides a good contrast to the stodgy music that I lean toward. But I asked, and I got a couple people who are going to speak. The only other thing I would say is, if you have an idea, don't be afraid to tell me. I mean, I might forget. I probably won't ignore you, but I might forget. So if you tell me something and you don't hear anything about it, then do it again, and get gradually more crabby with me, and I will remember. But I really want to hear ideas about what would make the music more vital. So I think Grant will start, and then you. I want to introduce Grant Anderson.
Oh, thank you. Hi. When Stephen in choir said, would somebody like to say a few words, he neglected to mention you'd be going first in the sanctuary. So, and he also said, please keep it brief. But music in choir is very near and dear to my heart. So I jotted down some notes, and I'm just kind of going to wing it. My name is Grant Anderson. I have been a longtime choral and singing person. I attended Central, and when I was there, I was a trombone player, and I auditioned for Lynn, and I was then told, you are now singing in CHS Singers and a cappella, and then men's chorus. And that mentorship prompted me to go on to Nebraska Wesleyan, which is also the BOMA's alma mater, where I got a degree in vocal performance. And it has led to just wonderful experiences with music. While I was studying at Wesleyan, I also pursued a major in art. And so I was seeing the art history and the music history sequence together. And that kind of opened my eyes that music and musicians don't exist in a vacuum. That there are so many skill sets and things that we do as musicians that translate into the greater world. As a choir, we learn collaboration, we practice, and we address those flaws, and we strive for perfection in that performance. But I've heard a lot of contrast being drawn between music ensembles and sports teams. And yes, there is a team building aspect, but the competition of there's a winner or there's a loser, I think, is so completely foreign to the idea of music, because we are all winners. The people who are singing, the people who are performing, the conductor who gets up, and the audience who gets to share that moment with us. And not only are we are listening, we're actively listening to each other, we're striving to fix our own flaws in that ensemble and to tie that into a greater good. And it gave me pause for reflection about how the world would be different if a lot of other things shared that same ideal, We look at the current political landscape and we think if we could think about how we can work on our own flaws, benefit something greater than ourselves, and produce a product that's good, that positively affects the world, where would we be? And those are all the foundational things about choir and performance. For me, choir has been, I'm going to get a little personal here. Again, wasn't expecting to be at the lectern. So Stephen's timing is oddly good every single time. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I moved back from Chicago, and I was in a very dark place. I had just had what I thought was a very good relationship completely dissolve. I had a failed suicide attempt. I was not in a place where I felt like I was a good person, I didn't want to be that person. And I get a call from Steve Boma about, hey, this is a long shot, but would you be interested in singing in choir? And I was raised Catholic. I was part of St. Margaret Mary's, and I had I'm going to say, crisis of faith, because I saw such a difference between what they were teaching us as students in CCD and how they were behaving to people who wanted to join and participate in that congregation. And that bitterness had made me very hesitant about coming into any building that even remotely looked like a church. And so I came in to choir, and for selfish reasons, trying to cling to something. And what I found was an incredibly welcoming community. And I was sitting there in the bass section with Bernie Momboquette and Ken Friedman Fitch and Luther McNaughton, and they were incredibly welcoming. And we became this little bass section, and it transitioned and just became this family that I got to hang out with and make jokes about and with and sing every week. And then get to share my talent for singing with all of you like we did today. And that really means a lot, you know? I mean, even after COVID, I took a break from coming to choir. I went off and did some other things, and I was in another dark place, and yet again, the phone rings, and it's Steve, and he's like, hey, would you think of coming back to choir? And I was like, you know what, yes. And that was January, because in January he called me and I realized that I had not touched a piece of music in 2 years. And I was like, I need to come back and sing, and all around it has been positive. So choir really builds that positive social skills. It becomes a social support. But more importantly, we can, as singers, bridge that emotional rift, that in that moment of frisson, that tingle on the back of your neck that gives you goosebumps, with a powerful performance, that loved ones who are lost to us become closer, and fears become more distant, and light is shown in the darkness in those moments. Thank you. And I offered to have you go first, and he said, no, Grant's going to start, so don't blame me.
I'll keep this real short. I have all the music background. I sang before I talked. I taught music. I love music, but that's not why I'm in choir. I'm in choir because big groups are threatening to me, but little groups, I can be snide and make horrid little comments and get some laughs. So I think of choir more as the little tiny family that kept me coming to First Central. I think if I was just sitting in the pews every week and didn't have that connection, I wouldn't have gotten involved and stayed at First Central. So I love the music, but I love more the people and being part of something.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stephen and Grant and Tara. Next on the agenda is an update on the status of pledging from Barb Switzer. Barb?
Oh, sure. I get to follow the interesting stuff with numbers. So I'm Barb Switzer, and I serve as your volunteer donations secretary, which means that when money comes into the church, offerings, I'm the one that records it in the church records, and I'm also the one that sends out your statement in January for your tax returns. And please, if there's ever a question about where your current pledge is, or if you're behind, or you need to catch up, or anything you need to know about the status of your current pledge, you can call the church office, they'll leave me a message, or you can send an email to the finance@firstcentral.org email, and I'll get back to you. So last year, we raised $361,158 from 94 people who made a promise to the church in good faith that they would try and donate a certain amount of money. I have to tell you that donations are all over the place. Some people give weekly, some people give monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually. Some give at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, all through the year, and the amounts vary greatly. We have everything from $5 a month to $1,500 a month. So whatever people can do to support the church, we're so grateful for. So that brings us to our current stewardship drive. We have a pretty big goal. It's an increase of almost 10% over what we actually raised last year. And so right now, there are 54 pledges for $258,822, which is about 2/3 of the way to our goal. So 31 of those people increased their pledge. Yay for you guys, thank you. And 15 people, their pledges stayed the same. And then we have 6 new pledges this year, which is always the exciting part. When people who have come to the church, they've been visitors, they've decided to join the church, and now they're going to make a financial promise to support the church. That's so encouraging. Thank you so much. So we're 2/3 of the way there. We need to get this done, of course, sooner the better, but by the end of December at the very least. So please, if I look around, I'm looking at faces and remembering names. I think many of you have already made a pledge, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much. But if you haven't had a chance to do it, or you're watching us online, you can also get in contact with the church and make a pledge just any time. Thank you.
Thanks, Barb. I mean, it goes without saying how important that particular operation is, and how important all of you are who are pledging and have pledged and plan to pledge. But it's as we've heard from the 4 stewardship speakers we've had in the last 4 Sundays, it's, just such a vital part of keeping this place that's so important to all of us up and running and keeping the doors open and the lights on. So thank you, everyone. So now the flip side of pledging. The pledges come in, and the next thing that happens is that we prepare a budget to govern the operation of this church, utilizing those pledges that are coming in. And so now I'll turn it over to Rhonda to present her information about the proposed 2025 budget. Rhonda.
Okay, I'm nervous. I'm the new treasurer, and so this is my first foray into the semi-annual meeting. So I have attached to the agenda my report so that it was easier in case some of you aren't real good listeners. Some people are visual learners, some people are audio learners. So the 2025 budget is approximately a 3.65% increase over the 2024 budget. It was decided that all the staff would receive a cost of living increase of 2.5%, which is what the government's COLA was this year. Most of the ministries on the 2025 proposed budgets actually remain very close to the 2024 amounts, with some having a small spending increase, and actually there are some ministries that decrease their budget. So everyone's trying very hard to make sure that the money that comes into First Central is spent in a good, valid manner. The big increases, of course, is 9.5% in building maintenance. Building maintenance is always going to be something that we have to keep ahead of. If you let it go too long, then it costs even more. There was also a 9.5% increase in building insurance. As I'm sure that all of you who carry insurance know, insurance keeps going up year after year. And even if you've never made a claim, it goes up. And in the times that we're having right now with all these natural disasters, I think more people are going to be paying for places that we don't live in, but it affects all of us. So that is going to be one of the things that's going to increase year by year. The 2025 projected budget, as Barb said, is there is a 10% increase in plate income and earned income. This is what we're hoping to increase our budget by so that we can meet all of our expenses. The current proposed budget shortfall would be $18,492.24. That's the amount that the budget, what we have determined to collect, that's the amount that would be left over that would have to be removed from one of our funds. I was shocked, but everyone says that's really a low amount. So hopefully we'll get some more pledges and we'll actually increase our plate and our earned income, and so it'll be even less than it is. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. And I am sure that that is part of the Finance Committee's decision.
I know that we've discussed this in the past, and that's a great proposal. You know, as of right now, with everything in flux, once we see where pledges are coming in and whether we can meet the existing budget as proposed, if it appears that we are well on the way to doing that, yeah, the council can definitely give consideration. And Tracy, I would, you know, encourage you to, we can arrange, if it looks like we might possibly have a way to approach that your proposal, we can arrange a council meeting where we can further discuss that if things are looking good. And I will let you know when that is so that you could come and make your impassioned plea, which, thank you for doing that, because I think that probably 98% of this people in this congregation agree with you wholeheartedly. If the money is there, yes, there is nothing better that we could probably spend it on. But we do have to see where we are with the current budget and where pledges come in. But yeah, it's something that would definitely be top of mind if circumstances allow.
Yes?
Oh, yeah, so.
Oh, her question, oh, her,
Yeah.
okay.
So Tracy, that's a good point. Sorry, I apologize for not doing that. But Tracy asked if it isn't possible, so the salary increases for the staff were 2.54.
2.5%.
2.5%. Tracy asked if it isn't possible to do a little bit better than that, to do, at least 3%. We do determine, so we get input based on cost of living statistics for the United States, and that is where the 2.5% figure comes from. Lamar provided us with that data. That's what informed our budget, proposed budget for 2025. But nonetheless, Tracy was asking if even so, if we couldn't do a little bit better than that statistical baseline. And so that was basically what we were talking about.
Yes.
So.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Rhonda. So thank you very much. I mean, that was fantastic, Rhonda. So Rhonda, as she mentioned, first-year treasurer. We are so lucky to have her. She's been doing a fantastic job in all the council meetings. It's very clear to me that we picked the right person, that we were fortunate enough to have that person agree, and we were fortunate enough to have her, and we picked the right person, and she's doing a fantastic job. So thank you, Rhonda. And next, Justin will come up and give an update on the capital campaign after a quick conference with Rhonda in the aisle there. So.
had to get some figures straight here. Hello, everybody. I'll go quick. We had a really busy year, and it doesn't always seem like we're doing a lot, but we try to do bursts of projects. And as we all know, things are continuing to increase in price. So over the last however many years we've been going on this campaign, construction costs alone have increased 30% every year. So we are trying to be good stewards of the capital campaign funding. This year alone, we spent $62,000 out of our budget. Just as a reminder, we had pledges of $750,000 over 5 years. So we are now 3 years into this campaign. This year we've spent $62,000, and these are the things that we fully accomplished this year. We replaced a whole bunch of more heat pumps, and that is a continuing project in this 55,000 square foot, 100-year-old, multi-million-dollar building. It will always be part of the maintenance costs. That was a big chunk of our fundraising, was to make sure that we can maintain this building. That is expensive, but very important. So thank you, Terry, for heading up that set of projects and ministry support. Terry did a lot to help fix the closers on doors that we've replaced to make sure that we can maintain these historic doors. We added key fobs and did other security upgrades. We replaced the kitchen doors. I know that wasn't the most popular decision. They are current fire code doors. That was essential for our building, for insurance, and for our liability. So as we experience those new doors, please remember that that was an essential part of making sure that our due diligence towards our population that's in this building is being met. The exciting stuff, we got the exterior painted. So thank you, John, for heading that up, and thank you to the Interior Design Committee for picking the color. It is beautiful. We have over 200 windows, and so over half of, and that doesn't even include the gables and all the other things that were painted. So it is tedious work, and it was a lot of work, and that represents over half of what we ended up spending this year alone. So big project, very essential one, but it looks really great. I think we can all acknowledge that. In progress, really fun things going on. Susan is heading up a Memorial Hall restoration. One of the key aspects of the Memorial Hall restoration has been lighting and sound. So lighting will be the bigger cost in that project, and we are redoing the lighting to include as much LED lighting and proper scope of lighting so that the current lights that we have there can provide the light that the room needs. We're also redoing the control panels as well so we can control the levels of those lights. We are having, after that, we're having it repainted. So over the next couple of weeks, these things will all happen. The building will be repainted, or the Memorial Hall interior space will be repainted. No more water stains on the walls and chipped paint. Those things will go away, and by Thanksgiving, it will be a beautiful space for us to have our pre-social hour. We also are putting up baffling in to address the sound. So we've consulted some sound experts, and we are confident that we can create some baffling for that space. All right, next one on the list, first floor. You'll see that the first floor is undergoing several stages of construction. We are tearing out the ceiling tiles. They are over 50 years old. They are yellow, stained, and gross. We are replacing all of those. At the same time, we figured might as well paint the walls, and all of this is in preparation so that we can do the floors. So any paint you see on the floors, all of this is part of making sure that we can tear all that old carpet out and replace the floors. That was one of the big chunks of the To Be More original campaign. That was one of the things that we said we would do. So we will get to that very soon. That project is progressing. I want to thank, these are the people who've helped, Chad, Kurt, Steve Dolezal, Andrew, and John Lowndes. Those are all people who've dedicated a lot of hours. So round of applause to all those people, please. Overall, that'll be a fairly inexpensive way to fully refreshen this hallway, so we're pretty excited about that. In the gym, we have some quotes for patching, repairing the moldy, gross walls that have holes in them from the plumbing that was leaking for 50 years. And we also have quotes for cutting out a section of the floor that had rotted and replacing that. And both of those things we hope to get done in the near future as well. So those are projects that are in process. That will help bring the gym back online so that we as a congregation can use it. Just as a reminder, we went down the road of trying to make it a commercial space that we could rent out or use. We need fire egress. That fire egress will cost over $300,000 alone. That is not part of our budget or process right now. The parlor bathrooms. This is the one I'm most excited about and the one that we're probably going to end up spending the most money on, because in the men's bathroom, we can restructure it so that the stall is not in the middle of the bathroom. For those of you who've been in there, it is the worst design I've ever seen in a bathroom. It is silly. It is going to be very expensive to replace the plumbing. The plumbing is 100 years old. Since we are redoing the bathrooms, now is the time to do that project. Now is the time to make sure that the new plumbing goes all the way to the plumbing that we did in the basement, so that this building can be relied on and that the leaks are reduced going forward in the future. So that project will involve new tile, new stalls, new fixtures. It will be as ADA accessible as we can make those bathrooms given their current layout. So all of that is very exciting, and we hope to have that project done by the annual meeting in January. That's our goal. Let's see. The next project that is not on the To Be More Task Force list, but it is one that we took on to make sure that it's part of our planning and is one that we want to present a proposal to the church for in the near future, is the elevator. And you've heard a lot of conversations about this. We've asked a lot of questions about it from the congregation to get feedback. We have been working with an architecture firm, with a specific architect and a commercial contractor for 2 years now to try to figure out how to make this happen as inexpensive but as well done as possible. We are still in the process of getting some final numbers and some final plans for that, so we're not ready to present it. Just know that we continue to plan on this process, and we will make some full proposals to the church with budgetary concerns and support in the near future. We want to make sure you have all the information we need as a church so that we can all collectively make a decision on what we want to do with that information. There is no deciding to do this without the whole church input, just to make sure everybody knows that that's part of the process. This is just the information gathering stage. And just to double back on what Barb said, just want to remind everybody that we are basing all of our budgets and the scope of these projects on that $750,000 that we pledged to raise. We have 2 years left of that campaign. Please go back and see, or if you need to, call Barb. She's an absolutely kind and wonderful and helpful person. Just call and chat with her for a little while. Figure out where you are in your giving and make sure that we are all on track. Because if we all stay on track, then we can complete these projects without any budgetary concerns. But again, we're planning on doing these things, and we have done these things in the expectation that the money that we said we would raise, we will end up raising. So please, let's all check what we said we were going to raise on that front and make sure that that's part of our giving. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Marianne. I will leave it at, go ahead, yes? Oh, yes. Fellowship One, the app that we use to track memberships, communications, those kind of things, also has your giving in that space. And so you can use it to check where you are. If you need support with that, there's a number of people, including Marion, who can help you with that support. Are there any questions about the capital campaign? If you have anything you'd like to ask me offline, please feel free. Thank you all.
Thank you, Justin. A nice, thorough, complete report on the capital campaign, as always, but that's probably to be expected since you've only done it about, 32 times now so far? So. Very good job, though. The last item on the agenda is I'd just like to say a few brief words about what's been going on with regard to some possible revisions to our bylaws. So I'm pretty sure that most of you here are well aware of this fact, but we actually have 3 church governing documents. The bylaws is the first and foremost of those 3 governing documents, but there are kind of addendums to the bylaws in the form of a policy book, a general policy book, and then a personnel handbook, a personnel or staff-oriented policy book of sorts. Those are our 3 governing documents. And we kind of, well, back in May, so Scott held a leader orientation session. And while anyone was more than welcome to attend, it was geared towards ministries and ministry chairs. It was well attended. It was a great presentation, lots of fantastic comment in it. But one of the topics that was discussed in that leadership orientation was the church bylaws and whether it might be appropriate to consider making some changes to it, whether specifically to some extent, the sections regarding the 5 ministries were useful and helpful for the members of those ministries and the chairs, and whether the ministry members felt that any revisions might be appropriate. It wasn't limited to the sections of the bylaws that address the ministries, but that was the main focus. So the ministries met, and they did prepare some proposed changes. Those are being gathered right now and compiled and will be considered by the council. I haven't viewed all the suggestions, but I believe they're fairly small refinements. I think there are some formatting and organizational changes that need to be made, and those are probably a big part of what we're talking about. But as far as I'm aware at this time, there are not going to be any major overhauls to the bylaws. So once the proposed changes are compiled and complete, they will need to be presented to the congregation, to the membership for approval, for a vote. And that vote will take place at the annual meeting in January. Per the bylaws, the changes must be submitted to all members at least 2 weeks prior to that vote. So once we get the proposed changes compiled, the council will meet and work out the details of exactly how that will take place, how those changes will be presented to the congregation, to the membership. And once we know how that's going to happen, we will let you all know and make sure that we do fulfill the requirements in our bylaws in that regard. So that concludes the scheduled agenda items for today's meetings. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring up for the good of the order? And if you do, I think I might actually encourage you, if possible, to perhaps come forward and actually stand at the microphone and either ask a question or make a proposal, if there are any such other items coming up for the good of the order. Do we have anything? Okay. Well, seeing none, then I'm going to take the opportunity once again to thank you all very much for attending this meeting. This process is so important to our congregation. And that's one of the things that I love most about this church is the democratic nature of our processes here. So I think this is just an utterly fantastic thing to have these meetings here. I'm so privileged to be a part of them as moderator. So really excites me a lot, to be honest with you. But thank you very much. And go out and have a great rest of your Sunday and a great rest of your week. And we're hereby adjourned. Did you get all that?